It was supposed to be just another quiet dinner. The restaurant was one of those charming, dimly lit places with soft jazz playing in the background. The kind of place where couples hold hands across the table, sip expensive wine, and pretend the world outside doesn't exist. She looked beautiful that night, red lipstick, diamond earrings I bought her 2 anniversaries ago, and that navy blue dress that always turned heads. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe we were okay. That maybe, just maybe, things were getting better. We had ordered dessert. Creme brulee for her, tiramisu for me. She laughed at something the waiter said, and I smiled, trying hard to feel included in the moment. Then, everything shattered. The couple sitting behind us spoke just loud enough to be overheard. 2 women, sharing wine and secrets. One of them said something that made my stomach twist into a knot. She told me he barely lasts a minute. A pause. Yeah, the other replied. She's tired of faking it. Emotionally and physically. I froze. Something about the voice. The cadence. It wasn't just familiar. It was my wife. My world didn't fall apart all at once. It cracked in silence, one jagged edge at a time. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just sat there, pretending not to hear what had already changed everything. She didn't know I heard. She kept eating her dessert like nothing happened. But inside me, something had snapped. And that's when I made the decision that would change both our lives forever. Looking back, the signs were always there. You don't just wake up one day to find your marriage hollow, it erodes, slowly, like waves eating away at stone. We used to be inseparable. In the early years, we'd talk for hours about nothing, laugh until we cried, make love like time didn't exist. But over time, the laughter faded. Conversations turned into logistics, groceries, bills, who's picking up the dry cleaning. She started coming home later from work. At first, it was just a meeting. Then it became don't wait up. Eventually, she stopped saying anything at all. And me? I stopped asking. It's not that I didn't notice. It's that I didn't want to admit how far we drifted apart. I thought giving her space was the answer. That maybe if I worked harder, stayed patient, kept loving her silently, she'd come back to me. But silence doesn't heal distance. It just makes it easier to pretend everything's fine. The intimacy disappeared first. Not just the physical part, though that too, but the connection. The look in her eyes when she used to see me walk through the door was gone. Replaced by something cold. Distant. Like I was a ghost in my own home. I remember one night, I asked her if she was happy. She blinked at me like I had spoken a foreign language. What do you mean? I mean. With us. With me. She took a long sip of wine and said nothing. That silence hurt more than any insult ever could. So I stopped asking. Stopped trying. And that's how marriages end, not with a fight, but with indifference. We became roommates who shared a mortgage. Strangers with shared memories. And somewhere along the way, I started to fear the truth. Maybe she had already left me emotionally. Maybe I was the only one still holding on. It happened on a Sunday morning. She was sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone, coffee steaming beside her. I stood by the stove, pretending to care about the eggs I was scrambling, when in truth, I was watching her. Studying her. She used to smile at me in the mornings. Used to run her fingers through my hair as she passed behind me, whispering good morning, love. But now. Nothing. Just the tapping of her thumb against the screen. I decided to try. One last time. I was thinking. Maybe we should go away. Just the 2 of us. A weekend. Somewhere quiet. She looked up, blinking slowly. Why? Because we haven't in a long time. I think it would be good for us. She stared at me for a second too long, then gave a tight smile. Not warm. Not kind. Just polite. I don't think that would fix anything. There it was. No pretense. No hesitation. I set the spatula down and turned to face her. Are we even trying anymore? She sighed and looked away, out the kitchen window, as if she could escape the question if she didn't meet my eyes. Maybe we're just not the same people we used to be. So that's it? We just give up? She finally looked at me. But there was no anger in her eyes. No sadness. Just exhaustion. I'm tired of pretending. The words sliced through me like a blade. But what she said next. That was the wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. Do you even realize how lonely I feel when I'm with you? I didn't respond. Couldn't. My mouth went dry. My heart, a brick in my chest. She stood up, grabbed her coffee, and left the room, leaving the smell of scorched eggs and shattered illusions behind her. It was the first time I truly understood, the person I married was gone. Or maybe She was never really there to begin with. A week after that kitchen conversation, I suggested we go out for dinner. She agreed without much interest, no questions, no enthusiasm. Just a nod and a flat, sure. I picked a place she used to love. An old Italian restaurant tucked away from the noise of the city. Candlelight, soft music, walls lined with old photos and wine bottles. The kind of place where romance once lingered between us. But that night, it felt like a stage. She barely looked up from her phone. I asked her about her day, she muttered something vague. I tried to compliment her dress, she gave a distracted smile. And then, it happened. Two women were seated at the table behind us. I couldn't see their faces, only the back of their heads. Their laughter rang out softly at first, then their words began to drift across the space between our tables. "You know what she told me?" One of them said, giggling. "What?" "That he barely lasts a minute." They both laughed. My pulse quickened. I froze mid-bite. "No way. I swear." She said, "It's like over before it starts." And the worst part? She's been faking it for years. My ears rang. It wasn't just gossip. It wasn't random. I knew that voice. It was her voice. My wife. She was the one talking. My wife, sharing the most intimate, humiliating details of our private life with another woman, like it was a punchline over pasta and wine. I felt something collapse inside me. Not rage. Not yet. Just a numbness. Cold. Heavy. She didn't know I heard. She didn't even glance in my direction. Just kept sipping her wine and laughing. And in that moment, I realized something worse than betrayal. She didn't care if I heard. Because to her, I no longer mattered. I sat in silence for the rest of the meal. My face calm. My hands still. But my mind? It was already writing the next chapter. After that dinner, I stopped sleeping. I would lie awake next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering how many more lies were hiding behind those lips that used to say I love you. I didn't want to become paranoid. I didn't want to become that guy, the one who snoops, who checks phones, who second-guesses every smile. But something in me had shifted. That moment in the restaurant lit a fuse I could no longer ignore. So I started paying attention. Late-night texts that made her smile. But that she quickly cleared from her screen. Phone calls taken in the bathroom with the faucet running. New lingerie she never wore for me. Business trips that didn't show up on the company calendar. And then there was the cologne. One night, she came home after saying she had dinner with an old friend. She hugged me briefly, more like a habit than affection, and turned away. But I caught the scent. It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers, either. The next day, while she was at work, I opened her laptop. I didn't need a password, she had never changed it from our wedding date. Maybe she assumed I'd never look. I wish I hadn't. There were messages. Hundreds of them. Chat logs, emails, even saved photos. Some innocent. Most not. His name was Aaron. A colleague. A friend from work I'd met once, briefly, at a holiday party. He had been in our home. Sat at our table. Looked me in the eyes. And all the while, he was sleeping with my wife. The texts told the full story. When it started. Where they went. What they said about me. "He's just safe," she had written to Aaron. Safe? He asked. Comfortable. Predictable. Like warm milk before bed. That one hurt. Not because it wasn't true, but because she said it like it was the worst thing in the world. I closed the laptop gently. No anger. No tears. Just a hollow ache in my chest. But deep down, I knew something had changed forever. And I knew this, I wasn't going to confront her with yelling. I wasn't going to beg her to stay or demand explanations. I was going to end it. But I would do it on my terms. After reading those messages, I didn't say a word. I didn't slam a door. I didn't throw accusations. I didn't cry. Instead, I went downstairs, made myself a cup of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steam rising from the mug, trying to remember the last time anything between us felt real. She came home that evening, humming to herself, wearing that same navy coat she always wore when she came from late meetings. She kissed me on the cheek, too casually, too quickly. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. Smiled, even. "Yeah. Just tired." That was the first time I lied. But it wouldn't be the last. From that moment on, I became an actor in my own life. I played the role of the devoted husband, the clueless fool, the man she thought she'd successfully deceived. But inside, a fire was building. It wasn't just rage. It was betrayal, humiliation, grief, all of it slow burning into something colder, sharper. I started watching everything. Her patterns. Her tone. Her lies. I kept our routines the same, cooked dinner, kissed her goodnight, made small talk. But I was somewhere else entirely, silently building a plan. Not for revenge. At least not the petty kind. No, this was something different. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Not through yelling or violence. Through precision. And so I waited. I smiled. I played dumb. Because sometimes silence is not surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. It came to me one night as I passed by the restaurant. That restaurant. The same one where she humiliated me, just loud enough for strangers to hear. The place that had once been a favorite of hers, before it became the scene of my quiet unraveling. I stood across the street, just watching it. Lights glowing warmly inside, couples laughing over glasses of wine, waiters weaving between tables with practiced grace. From the outside, it looked like happiness. But I knew better. I thought of never going back there again. But then another thought came, a darker, more thrilling one. What if I didn't just go back? What if I bought it? At first, it sounded insane. Why would I want anything to do with that place? But the longer I stood there, the more the idea wrapped itself around me like smoke. Not out of spite, but clarity. Purpose. That restaurant wasn't just where she mocked me. It was a symbol. A theater of betrayal. And now it would be mine. Not as a customer. Not as a wounded husband licking his pride. But as the owner. I had the money. Years of careful saving, modest living, a few smart investments. I had no kids, no debts, and nothing left to lose emotionally. And most importantly, I had nothing tying me to her anymore. I made some calls. Quietly. Discreetly. The owner was in his late 60s and ready to retire. He'd been looking for a buyer, and I was just a man looking for a clean slate. Within 3 weeks, we had a deal. Just like that. The papers were signed. The deed transferred. The same tables. The same chairs. The same soft jazz on the speakers. But everything else? Different. Because this time, I wouldn't be sitting at that table, hoping to be noticed. This time, I would be waiting for her. Ownership changed something in me. Walking through those doors the first time as the new owner, I could almost feel the ghosts of that night lingering in the air. The table where she laughed about me. The chair where I sat, paralyzed by disbelief. The echoes of betrayal, still faintly clinging to the walls. But I wasn't there to dwell. I was there to build something. And dismantle something else. I kept the staff. They were good people, professional, experienced, and discreet. I didn't tell them much, only that I wanted to keep things running smoothly. The head chef, a quiet man named Marco, offered to update the menu. I smiled and said, "Let's keep it the same. For now." Every change I made was subtle, small upgrades, new stemware, fresh linens, better lighting. I wasn't trying to erase the past. I wanted her to recognize it. Over the next few weeks, I prepared carefully. I watched her routine. I listened to her excuses. I tracked the lies she still didn't know I knew. And then I sent the invitation. A handwritten note, delivered anonymously. Dinner for 2. A special reservation. Come hungry. I made sure it looked like one of those exclusive experiences, something Instagrammable, romantic, secretive. She had a taste for novelty, after all. She found it on our kitchen counter one morning. Read it. Smirked. "Someone thinks they're being mysterious," she said. I shrugged. "You gonna go?" "Might as well. Sounds fun." I smiled to myself. She had no idea. For days leading up to it, I planned every detail. The lighting, the music, the wine list. I assigned her a specific table, the same one from that night. I chose the server personally. I even made sure the dessert menu had exactly the same items. But with one new addition. A custom dessert. Sweet. Beautiful. And hiding something she'd never expect. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't second-guessing. I was ready. Because she had served me public humiliation once. And I was about to return the favor, with precision, with elegance, and with closure. The night of the dinner, I arrived early. I wasn't there as a guest. I wasn't even visible. I stayed in the back, dressed in black, watching from the security feed in the office. The staff knew the plan: treat her like any other guest. No special treatment. No recognition. Just warmth. Charm. Hospitality. At exactly 7:05 p.m., she walked through the front doors, alone. She wore that same navy blue dress. The same one she wore the night she ridiculed me at that very table. She looked around, curious but not suspicious. The host greeted her with a polite smile and walked her straight to the reserved table. The table. She sat, glanced at the menu, sipped the complimentary wine. She had no idea. Minutes passed. She checked her phone. Likely wondering where her date was, if he was late, or if this was all just part of the surprise. I had made sure Aaron would never show up. A private message from a mutual friend had given him enough reason to stay far away. She was alone. And for the first time in a long time, so was I. Not lonely. Not abandoned. Just free. The first course was served. She smiled at the presentation. Took photos for Instagram, probably. The wine kept coming. The music danced gently through the room. I had chosen her favorite songs, the ones she used to hum while getting dressed for evenings she no longer wanted to share with me. Halfway through the main course, she started to shift in her seat. You could see it on the screen, something felt off. It was all too familiar. Too perfect. She looked around. Her eyes flickered over the bar, the waitstaff, the kitchen doors. Maybe she was starting to realize it wasn't random. Maybe something in her memory stirred. But it wasn't until dessert that the illusion broke. The server brought out the final plate, a beautifully plated crème brûlée, just like the one she had that night. Except this time, there was something extra. A folded white envelope, resting gently next to the spoon. She looked at it, puzzled. Glanced at the server, who simply smiled and walked away. She picked it up, unfolded it slowly. And read the first line. To the woman who taught me how silence tastes. Her expression changed instantly. Confusion. Shock. A flicker of fear. She kept reading, her hands trembling now. I knew every word by heart. I had written it 100 times before choosing the right version. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was closure. I told her I knew. I told her how I had found out, and how long I had stayed silent, watching her perform love while slipping further into someone else's arms. And then, at the bottom, the real ending. By the time you finish dessert, I'll have filed the divorce. You may leave whenever you're done. The meal's on the house. I own it now. She didn't finish the dessert. She stood up, visibly shaken, looking for someone, maybe for me. But I wasn't in the room. Because this wasn't her scene anymore. It was mine. She left in a hurry. No dramatic exit. No shouting. Just the hurried clack of her heels across the marble floor and the sound of the front door swinging shut behind her. The staff watched her go, politely silent, professionally indifferent. They didn't know the full story, only that something personal had just taken place. Back in the office, I sat still, watching the empty screen where she had just been. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Victorious. But what I felt was something else entirely. Peace. In the days that followed, I filed the divorce exactly as I'd said. There were no fights. No drawn-out negotiations. She didn't contest a thing. Maybe because she knew she had already lost something far more valuable than a settlement. She lost the illusion of control. I moved out. Left the house to her. It never felt like mine anyway. Too many shadows in those walls. Too many quiet, sleepless nights spent next to someone who was already gone. The restaurant, though? That became something different. At first, I thought owning it was about revenge. About power. But as the weeks passed and her memory faded from the corners of those rooms, I realized. It was about reclaiming something. My self-respect. My voice. My dignity. People started coming back. New faces, old regulars. They didn't know the story behind the name on the papers. They just came for good food, good wine, a warm evening. And slowly, I began to heal. I stopped thinking about her laugh echoing across the dining room. Stopped thinking about Aaron's cologne on her coat. Stopped wondering what I could have done differently. Because some endings aren't failures. They're just freedom. And sometimes, the best way to move on isn't with rage or fire or vengeance. It's by letting go. By building something new from the wreckage someone else left behind. And, every now and then, when I see a couple holding hands over candlelight at table 7, the table where I once heard my world fall apart, I smile. Not out of bitterness. But because I know that sometimes, even in the place where your heart breaks, you can rebuild something better. Betrayal leaves a mark. Not the kind that scars your skin, but the kind that changes the way you see the world. It makes you question the memories, the laughter, the promises. It makes you wonder if any of it was ever real. And yet, it also reveals something powerful. That even when someone breaks you, you still get to choose who you become afterward. I could have let her define me. Let that night at the restaurant become the final chapter of my story. But instead, I rewrote it. I didn't get revenge. I got clarity. I didn't destroy her. I let her go. In the end, it wasn't about proving anything to her. It was about proving to myself that I could rise from something that was meant to bury me. That I could take back control without ever raising my voice. That dignity, real, quiet dignity, is more powerful than any scream. If you've ever been lied to, dismissed, made to feel like you were less than enough, I want you to remember something. Your silence doesn't make you weak. Your stillness doesn't make you blind. And your pain doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. And if this story hit something deep inside you, if it reminded you of a moment you thought you had buried, then I ask you, like this video, leave a comment below to share your story or your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're building a space for real stories, hard truths, and second chances. Because life doesn't always give us justice. Sometimes we have to create it ourselves.